Good morning, folks. Well, it's morning where I am. It's Rich here. This is a video that I hope will be helpful to beginners. It's just a few little tips that I think would, you might know them already, but it's worth going back over a few things that might be helpful. Now, just so that you know who I am, I've been picking up guitar on and off for a while, but every time it got tough, which is frequent, I would just buy another guitar to try and keep myself interested. So this is guitar number 85, which is ridiculous, I know. But and I guess I would class myself as an intermediate to advanced beginner, I suppose, which might probably sounds daft. I can play some backing tracks and keep in tune reasonably all right. I know a bunch of scales which I can play okay and do a few bits and bobs, but I'm still a novice. But there are a few things that I think are, in hindsight and looking back over the time I've been sort of doing this, that I think really help if you're a beginner. So yeah, so I guess in a way, one beginner to another, but a beginner here who's kind of had more experience in lots of guitars. So number one is use an electric, not an acoustic guitar. I know that sounds quite controversial, but there's some good reasons why I say that. First of all, an electric guitar doesn't have to be expensive. You can get a Squire Bullet Stratocaster, brand new, for £110. It's not too bad, and they're a perfectly good guitar. But the reasons for it are, versus an acoustic, the neck. It's thinner this way, generally. It's thinner, a lot thinner this way. The strings aren't as fat, they're a lower gauge, so they're easier to hold down. And the action, which is the distance of the strings to the fretboard, is always lower as well. So it's just much easier to learn on. Don't have to press as hard, doesn't hurt your fingers as much. If you're a child or if someone with smaller hands, I've only got lots of sort of medium-sized hands really, it's easier to get your hands around the neck. It's just a much easier playing experience than an acoustic. And the other thing that people don't always think, I think, oh, electric. A friend of mine actually said this when she bought electric for her daughter, based on my sort of recommendation, if you like, is unplugged. They're much quieter than an acoustic. So this is unplugged. And if you put the pick down, so it's late at night. So you can practice much quieter without irritating yourself and everybody else. If you get an acoustic, especially if you using a pick, which a lot of people do, and you pluck, I'll put the amp on so you can hear the difference a bit more here. So you pluck gently, you pluck a bit hard as a beginner, much more volume. So it's much noisier. So lots of things really with an electric. The other thing is that, so like the body on them. If you've got an acoustic, it's out here. So you're kind of doing, you're sort of like this, trying to see what you're doing and see where you're going. So an electric is just much more compact, easier neck, it's much easier, so you're more likely to carry on. So that's number one. That doesn't mean, by the way, you can't go to an acoustic at a later point, but start on an electric. That's my first thing that I would say. And the second thing, and this is really small, I showed this in another video, this is a footstool, like a footrest for guitar. It's got, you can have it at different heights. Here, it's got some little rail on the bottom. But, when you're, if you're right-handed like me, instead of being kind of up on your tiptoe for the guitar to sit on your knee, you just rest it on that footrest. It's so much less tiring and more comfortable than being up on your tiptoe. It costs £10 from a local music shop. So get yourself a footrest. That's a good one for me. I think the other thing that's really important is that you pick your guitar as often as you can. And you'll hear this on lots of other videos from other people. Long practice sessions are nowhere near as good as picking it up frequently and doing shorter ones, apart from the fact it's not as hard on the fingers. But the only way you're going to do that is if you can see your guitar and it's somewhere in sight. Now in my bedroom, this sits on the stand right next to my amp by the window, by my desk. So literally every time I come in the room, it's just there. And yeah, every time I've got a few minutes spare, I just pick it up. I just pick it up. Don't put the amp on all the time. Just play some chords, do a few scales. Before you know it, 15 minutes later, you're thinking, I'll just quit 5 minutes. You're doing 15 or 20 minutes. Put it back down. The next time you come in your room, you'll probably pick it up again. You'll just pick it up. If it's somewhere in sight and you can just grab it, you will. And that's much better doing that more frequently than sort of long sessions. So that's number 3. Okay, so get an acoustic, footrest. Make sure your guitar is somewhere easy and you can just pick it up. And then I think the other thing, I should open this a little bit. The next thing I would suggest is in terms of chord playing, because it's not an easy instrument, let's face it. I'll just put the amp on just as a little bit more audibility, but just pick 3 pretty straightforward or relatively chords in a sequence. So for example, E major, which is 3 strings, again just look these up, E major, and then an A chord. Now people play this chord differently to others. I use 3 fingers on it. I know that just in guitar he'll say different shape, but E, A, and then D here. So these 3 go together. And the things, they sound nice together. And once you can move between one to the other just a little bit more quickly, you can just tinker around with them to change the note. So if I take this finger off, it becomes E minor, so I can just go, I can put it on. And there's my A, and then my D here. Again, 3 fingers, not too difficult chord. So I can just put my little finger on. Take this one. So you can just have a little play around. So just practice 3 chords. So it just feels like you're getting to one, and just do some different strumming. So okay. So pick on 3 of the easier ones, and I think these are 3 of the easier ones, really. Try and get them down, because then you can start just enjoying it a little bit more, really. Yeah, so you're just embellishing once you get going a little bit. So pick 3 easy chords. The other one, and not everyone might agree with this necessarily, is that a bar chord is at some point unavoidable. Yeah, you're going to have to learn to play a bar chord, and they're tricky because your finger's going right across. And again, this comes back to electric versus acoustic, much easier to play. So the way 2 things I did to persevere with bar chords, and don't get me wrong, I'm not brilliant at them, but the first one was I would play a C chord, which I'd learn, which is a nice sound. When your little finger goes on it, this is one of the things I've just come back to with the previous chords, just embellishing things. But if I put that on, but I'm almost in the right position to play F. These 2 fingers, so C, F, C, sorry, F. Or another way of practicing it is just spend a few minutes saying, I'm just going to have a go at this bar chord. So get yourself in there. Your wrist position needs to be sort of cocked so you can get your rounds. If you're too flat here, then everything's going to buzz. But just spend just a little bit of time, no matter how annoying it is. I'll put it off for a long time. But you have to learn to play them at some point. So just pick yourself that major shape. Just practice doing what I'm doing now. Even if it buzzes a bit, which it will, that's fine. But it will just build up a bit of finger strength, particularly this one holding it down, and on the back, the thumb strength as well, just to push into the neck to hold it down. So that's number 5, isn't it? Don't avoid bar chords. Buzz, buzz. And I guess moving on just a little bit now, is the next one is to learn a scale and play it to a backing track. Now that might sound possibly like miles away for a beginner, but it's not as miles away as you think, especially if your guitar is in sight and you're going to pick it up every day and just fiddle around with it. So let's say you learn the first position of the pentatonic scale. Again, you look this up. It's one of the more simple chords. I'm going to play it here in B. So G, A, B. Little dots on the top and on your fretboard. So I'm not saying that's easy when you're like a complete beginner, but everyone needs to know some scales at some point. But to me, just to keep yourself interested in the guitar and making you feel like you're playing it, I'm going to just put a backing track on in a minute and show you why I've chosen to kind of pick on this. So first position, of the minor pentatonic scale, if I put a backing track onto this, all I've got to do, keep myself in just gentle time. I don't even have to feel like I'm, playing guitar as in like doing mad solos. I can just play these notes off this scale, and they will go along with the tune. See what I mean? Here we go. Hold on. Turn this up a tiny bit so you can hear it. So I found this backing track on YouTube. Just typed in backing track. It's B minor pentatonic scale. Oh, sorry, just turn it up a bit. So hopefully you could see there, I've just gone up and down the scale, but as I'm just keeping gradual time with it. It's not a fast track, it's like 70 beats a minute or something. It just allows you to practice your scale, but to some music. So it feels like you're playing guitar a bit more. And then, so when you get a bit more confident, you can do some, hammer-ons, which is a technique you'll learn, or little bends. But the point is, one basic scale, and you can play along to some music. And the last two on this, I'm going to say, for beginner, is once you've perhaps done a few of the things I've suggested, you start to learn just a few chords and have a play around with it. And you've had a little go to a backing track a few times, and so you're starting to feel like you're going somewhere and it's worthwhile, rather than just doing real basic stuff, like the foundations, if you like, that you have to do all the time, because you're more likely to give it up, especially if you're on an acoustic. So once you've done that for a little while, you're like, okay, kind of like this, then really the next step is to get yourself some structure with what you're doing. If you need some free lessons, Justin Guitar online is really good, and Marty Music is good, but you need to then really follow some structure so that you've got sort of a structured lesson plan, if you like, or practice plan, more to the point. So each day when you pick it up, okay, I need to spend a few minutes doing my scales, and I might do that to a metronome to help timing. And then other days, next time, I need to practice my chord changing. Other days I need to do my scales. So have a bit of structure, otherwise you'll get to a point, kind of where I've got now really, whereas I haven't got any structure at the moment, so I'm just stuck. So quick recap then for you. These are my tips. Electric instead of acoustic. Get your foot rest so it's more comfortable when you sat down. Keep your guitar somewhere that you can see it and pick it up easily, frequently. Learn 3 chords and just learn to change those, and then embellish them by trying different strumming patterns and adding the odd finger on, so again it makes you feel like you're playing some music. Put a little bit of time to bar chords, because the sooner you get into those, it will help all of your finger strength and open things up for you. Learn one scale in one position, just as I mentioned there. That was the minor pentatonic scale. And then put a backing track on and just play the scale up and down. And the more confident you get, the more you'll move around and do something different with it. Then if you're still into guitar, get some structure. And the most important thing of all of this really is to try and enjoy it. It can be frustrating. And when I was younger and I was really at one point trying to play guitar, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I must learn this, I must do that. And when I couldn't, I got annoyed. And I kind of lost sight of the fact it's a hobby and it's an interest. I'm not about, I'm not going to go on stage anytime. As one of the guys who subscribes to me very kindly said earlier, it's like singing in the bath. Kat said to me, yeah, it's a bit like it's singing in the bath. That's kind of it, isn't it? You're in your bedroom and you're just enjoying yourself. So make sure you enjoy it. Right, thanks for listening, and please check out some of my other videos. There's various reviews on budget guitars and some demos of different sounds I get from my Blackstar amp and a few other things, so feel free to have a look at those. Thanks guys, Rich out.